Hello everybody, Triple Spartan here, and this is actually a video regarding a past live stream of mine. If you were there, I actually went through the game files and I actually found the answer that people have been looking for a while. The answer to just how the warrior name is determined within RTI. So I entered the game maker, and up here, this is the scene where we received the warrior name, and up here is the event that handles the scene. And if we go into that, we get this screen right here, which is the event. And along the way, we reach this special script right here, which is actually the key of what's determining our name. So right before that is Blair Star saying, "Then by the power of StarClan, I give you your warrior name." And then right then this runs, which determines it. And then it replies with variable 18 pa. From this moment on, you'll be known as, and then it says your new name. Basically what happens here, you can actually see ahead of this, but game variable 85 is set to black if game variable 85 is set to 0. If we look closer at that and open it up, we get that traits equals naming.highestTraits. We're going to be looking at this script later on here, but this is something important to note. But basically it just creates an instance called traits of this script right here. Game variable 85 is equal to black, so it sets it to black if currently 85 is 0. So if for whatever reason you don't have a name at this point, which probably will only happen if you're like testing the scene or default to the name black. And in case you're wondering, the actual default name of the character you're playing as is Blackpaw. And game variable 97 is equal to trait 0, so there's the first of the array that the traits give out. And then 101 is traits 1. And then the actor's name so the name of your character, which will be represented as backslash and then N1, is equal to game variable 85, which is where your prefix was stored, and then it adds on naming.suffix. This is another script that we're going to be looking at. So we're going to be looking at naming.suffix and naming.highestTraits. And if we go back to here, it'll continue on saying, for your variable 85 pa, so your prefix pa, from this moment on you'll be known as your new name. StarClan honors your variable 97, which is the first trait, and variable 101, which is the second trait. So that's basically how this ceremony works. But you may be wondering what's behind these naming scripts, the naming.highestTraits and naming.suffix. So let's go into scripts and find out how that works. So if we resume this, under script editor, there's this, which is the actual game script, and it's a doozy. At first it wasn't commented, but here I did a bunch of comments to help me along and help me follow you and help you follow me. I cannot expand this, I don't think. Nope. Oh well. So this is all one big class called weighted array, although it only ever calls the module naming, as we saw before with naming. So we already saw naming.highestTraits where it retrieved the traits. So here it does self.highestTraits, the self being the naming part where it's called in. First is 0 to 11, second is 0 to 10. So basically it sets those up. Variables 189 through 200 are personality traits of Snowpaw. Here it actually refers to her as Snowpaw. And this is literally the only comment this came with. So it right here, it basically iterates through each and every trait, checking each one. J is a storage to see, like, so far you've basically been able to tell that game $game variables, and then the brackets with the number represents the game variable with the number inside. So here it starts at 0, x starts at 0 and it counts up each time it goes through this. So it starts at 0 plus 189. So at first the variable is set to 189, and then it basically says if this variable is greater than or equal to the first 0 absolute, second equals first equals variable times the index, which is the x. So basically this stores the value that you're getting from the game variable, and it also stores which value it is. And then it also goes else if it's greater than the second one. In that case, it stores it into the second. And basically this sets second into first because you found a variable that's greater than first. So whatever you had in first before would go to second, because now that's second in terms of the greatest trait, and then the first is now set to that. The reason why these have .abs is because traits actually go positive or negative. Negative represents one side of the trait and positive represents the other side of the trait, because like if just quickly scrolling down here, each trait is actually two parts, like merciful and cruel. Each one's like an opposite of each trait, so that way like you can't be merciful and cruel at the same time, which kind of makes sense. Super negative would end up giving you a result of a strong negative trait, but at the same time you don't want like you to have only positive traits, because you're only taking the actual value, and this is like a very high negative, but a trait that you only have one is greater than a -5 trait, which the 5 trait should be. So that's what the ABS does. It takes the absolute value and spits it out as a positive number so it can do the greater than properly. And then if the variable it's checking doesn't find that it's either bigger than the first or second trait, it's only caring for first and second trait, because the leader only refers to your two most considered traits. So that's why it only stores first and second, and it iterates through that until it finds your two strongest traits. So that's basically what this portion does. Traits is a new array, and then it pushes the first value into its slot 0, and it pushes the second value into its slot 1. So when it said traits, so when it said in the code traits 0, that would refer to this line, which is the first, and when it said traits 1, it would be referring to that line. So that's basically how it fetches your greatest traits. And then it also refers to here trait from number, which basically n is the trait, and then the position, like 1 or 2, which is basically the v and the x down here. This determines whether or not it is. And that's it for the actual traits, but when it comes to the naming, it's actually quite different. So I know it was mentioned in the forum that if you have the star prefix, you get the glaem as a name, which is actually proven here. If your name is star, it just returns glaem automatically without really checking anything. So you'll get glaem 100% of the time. So other than that, list equals generic suffixes. So list now gets assigned this, which outputs a result as an array. Now this is going to get complicated really fast, but basically what this is doing is it's creating a weighted array. So it's basically giving you all of these names that are all on this list, and each one's getting the weight of 1. So when it goes to check and picks a random value out of the list, it basically assigns all of these the weight of 1. The higher the weight, the more likely you're going to get the name. And that's basically the gist of that, because I know I probably explained this too in depth. So now I'm just going to try to be more broad. Basically, you automatically get each one of these names having a chance of getting it, and each get assigned a weight of 1 by default, and then it returns there. So list now has all of those names with a weight of 1, and it also generates events suffixes. Event suffixes would be this big thing. Basically, it's suffixes that you earn more weights depending on like what you did in the actual game, and they all get listed out right here. Oddly enough, so list just equals array, so it just sets the list up, which it returns, which it will add to the previous list of all these names. And for some reason it adds heart again with the weight of 5. You already got the heart name up here, if I find it. Yeah, but for some reason it assigns you heart twice there. So some reason you get assigned hearts with a weight of 5 defaultly. I don't really know why. So this first one, light, is if dust built your apprentice nest, basically. I couldn't quite track down what actually initiated this switch, so I'm not actually sure how exactly this wouldn't be the case, because literally your nest doesn't show up the first night if that's not switched on. So yeah, I don't know how you wouldn't be able to get light. But onwards, so if you're considered medicine material, you get all of these. So you get berry with the weight of 50. Keep in mind that all of these only have the weight of 1. These are all 50 by default for berry, stem, and leaf. You get claw and fang if you got no claw warrior, i.e. you defeat the fox. You get strike, and now here's where it gets a little more complicated with the weight, but honestly it's not that complicated. So here you get strike for the weight of 5 times this variable, if variable is greater than 0. So variable 0 would be vengeful or forgiving, and this is the vengeful section because it's checking for positive, and positive is the ladder trait. So this will output a positive value of 5 times whatever your game variable is set at. So the value you have of the number at which you're considered vengeful, it takes that number and times it by 5, and that's the weight. And that's basically how all of these sections work. You get birds and flights and wing if you're considered merciful and not cruel. You get flower if you're considered energetic or neutral. This is odd because this is actually the only one that uses a less than or greater than symbol. So that was kind of interesting in the case of flower. Hearts gets assigned twice again. I guess Leonard really likes the heart. So you get it if you're merciful again. So there was a merciful section up here. However, it gets a different weight, and it actually has the highest scaling of all of these. So it has a negative, so it's multiplied by -10 instead. Like all of these just have bases, but that's mostly because they are based off switches, so it's not like they have a actual value to multiply off of and scale off of. But this is just of 10 instead. And this one's -5, which is valorless or cowardly, and this is the valorless section, which also gives you heart. So like it's heart for compassion and heart for like hardy. And then down here is on this deceitful and the deceitful section. So it's shade, night, and marsh. This one's actually ×3 instead of ×5. And then you have another chance with spirit with 100 weight if game variable 57 is 100. So basically, this just means if you complete the Badgerpaw quest, the Badgerpaw hero quest with Maple Frost, this just gets default to 100. The coding there is weird. But in the end, if you complete that quest, you get a 1000 set as that. And then with all of this information, now we go back up to where we originally started here. Right here. So those were all the event suffixes. So now the list has generic suffixes and now the event suffixes. And then it deletes character. And then this dot deletes game variable 15 dot downcase. So basically, this is quite a simple thing. It's like, let's suppose your prefix is B. If you end up getting it basically just deletes every single one that's listed as a possible prefix if it matches your first name. So basically, it stops you from having BB or some other silly combination, willow willow, blaze blaze, mist mist. But like all of those, you don't really get spirit spirit, leaf leaf, light light. No, you're not gonna get anything because it's impossible to get those because of this one. And then this dot result. And I believe that's supposed to be a return. I might have messed this up while editing it, because it definitely returns a statement. So basically, when it does self.suffix, it runs this script and it returns the result of it. And in case you're wondering what the weighted array is, that's down here somewhere, right here. That basically makes a new instance of this, and it has all of these. So if you're wondering about weights and you can understand this, define adds name and then the weight. So this is the prefix you'd get, the weight it is, weight dot times @data push name. So if you understand that, good. If you don't understand that, I already explained how weights work. It's basically how much value in the RNG it has to be able to return that. And basically, yeah, some of this is scrap code, like random trait. I don't really know why that's there. I think it's for testing purposes. Just like this is for testing purposes, where it basically runs through this 1,000 times. Because why not? But basically, that's how names are determined. You have this humongous list right here. That's all of the weights you can get. No, actually, it's up here. All of the names you can get, and then it files each one into one. Because like it goes through each iteration of random list, which is assigned this. And then it just spits out the result with each one as the weight one. And that basically wraps this up. That's how your traits and your names get chosen by all of these scripts, custom made by Leonard. And good job, Leonard, for doing all of this. And that basically wraps this up. There's this fishing script with pikes and minnows and all this good stuff. But yeah, this basically wraps this up for the naming of RTI. So I hope that you enjoyed this little like quicker overview thing where I actually explain it more directly than trying to figure it out on stream. So hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time. Bye.